Welcome to Signature Morning. My name is Godwin Sunday. Amidst the turbulent economic challenges, Nigerian stock market has demonstrated remarkable resilience, posing impressive gains that underscores investors' confidence and market vitality. Precisely with just one trading day left to the end of the first 9 months of 2024, the Nigerian stock market has gained 15.66 trillion naira as investors continue to invest in blue chip companies. The double-digit inflation rate on stable foreign exchange markets, soaring monetary policy rate, among other microeconomic challenges, could not deter investors as they continued to take advantage of the opportunities that Nigerian stock exchange market offers. The Nigerian economy has witnessed inflation that moved from 28.92% as at December 2023 to 32.15% as of August, while the naira exchange rate against the dollar closed on Friday at 1,637 naira to a dollar. Also, the Central Bank of Nigeria has increased the MPR by 850 basic points to 27.25% from 18.75% last year, with a focus on moderating inflation. Despite these challenges, the overall market capitalization of the Nigerian Exchange Limited as of September 27, 2024 closed at 56.578 trillion naira, which was an increase of 15.66 trillion or 38.27% when compared to the 40.918 trillion naira it closed for trading at the end of 2023. Well, we'll be looking at the Nigerian economy. People call it right now the Tinubu economy and Tinubu's policy, because the president has been on the forefront of ensuring that Nigerians improve in our economy, and we've seen a very significant progress so far in the Nigerian Stock Exchange at its surge by 38% in just 9 months. And joining me this morning to talk about Nigerian economy is Chibe John Kennedy, and he is an economist and also a management consultant. We'll be looking at the Nigerian economy this morning. How have we come? But first, let me make welcome Mr. Chibe John Kennedy. You're welcome to Signature Morning.
Thank you for having me.
All right, you heard what we just read in the Nigerian Stock Exchange, but let's look at it in terms of practical terms. Can we say at this point that the Nigerian economy is growing?
Thank you once again. There is a difference between growth and development, and we need to make that difference immediately. When you say it is growing, it is increasing probably in GDP, in numbers, and then in gross national capital, GDP, gross domestic product, and GNP. But when you talk about development, which is the key, you are talking about answering questions that has to do with poverty, questions will have to do with inequality, then questions will have to do with unemployment. So for now, Nigeria may be growing without development, and that is where I want to leave it until further question. I will explain later.
All right, but let's look at in terms of inflation. We've grown from 28.92% as of December last year. As of August this year, we're in the same number of inflation. I think we've grown to about 32.15%. Again, when inflation keeps surging and the Nigerian stock exchange market tends to be appreciating right now, can we now say that in terms of the value of the naira right now is anything to go by?
Okay. See, the good thing, recently the central bank governor made a press conference in United States, I think in New York. He gave indices of what they have gained in the policy. But first of all, let's look at the key policies. And then when you look at it in totality, you now want to know, answer that question. Are we really having what we want? First of all, the policy on floating exchange rate. The economy, the government is operating a managed floating. That is where once in a while the central bank will intervene. And then also they have removed the subsidy. That is one of the stabilization policies of the Bretton Woods, which is to reduce public expenditure. And they are still on their privatization policy. And then, like you said, the CBN came up with tight monetary policies, increasing the MPR to 27.5%, increasing the liquidity ratio to 30%, and even the cash deposit requirement, they increased it also now to 50%, meaning that banks are required to keep as much as 50%. Now, the implication of this, what they are looking at is to bring down inflation through reducing expenditure, through reducing purchasing power, through reducing, the what we call disposable income, and then making capital costly. Now, for some sectors of the real economy, for some sectors, like sectors that probably may have to do with exports, it may be advantageous. And one of the probable aim of the main goal, based on theoretical foundation, is that they want to promote export and reduce exports. Then they want to increase inflow, that is foreign direct investment. So when you talk about, people appreciating security, people buying shares and all those, of course, some sectors may gain. But on the overall, what we'll be looking at, what is the entire effect on the economy? I said initially that Nigeria might be growing, but not developing. And that is the issue. That's where we are. That is the problem. So,
Nigeria might be growing but not developing. But then again, let's look at the Nigerian economy in terms of its macro economy as it stands right now. When you say Nigeria is growing but not developing, we want to know in what light, in the micro or in the macro economy?
Thank you. One of our role models in economics, Professor CS, is, I think he was the first founder of the Development Institute in UK, and he is an expert in development economics, which most economists now tend to buy. He defined development as answering three key questions. Do you have poverty reduction? Have you achieved employment gains? Have you achieved reduction in inequality? If these three things are not there, then no matter the numbers you are churning out, even if you are capital, okay, for that now, Nigeria may be thinking, yes, in the past 1 year, that we have grown our foreign reserve. That's fine. But when you have grown your foreign reserve, and when probably, you said you have stabilized your foreign exchange. That's one of the things the central bank government said recently. You have stabilized the foreign, and then what? The question is, how does it affect others? So when you talk about development, people are losing their jobs. People are the poverty is getting too bad. Now, we understand as economists that in the short run, these policies, what you call market reforms, are probably what people are going to face. But then, in most economies where these things are done and you achieve what we want to achieve, you have a lot of, you combine it. You have a program, long-term program, so that when you begin to face this, but churning out tight fiscal policies, monetary policies at the same time, like I said, using managed floating, there are about 5 types of foreign exchange which open to the government. You have the fixed, which some military governments used before. We have the dual economy, which sometimes people have one rate for this and another rate maybe for import. You have what we call the crawling peg, which probably, when you have fixed economy, you adjust based on inflation. That's what some of these, like the former government was doing. They have a fixed rate, and then they want inflation and change it. Then you have the entire which was floating. Now, when you float the economy, what do you get? An economy that does not have much to export. What we have, the agri sector is down, is in coma. The agri sector is in coma. Why? Because we have insecurity. Now, these things have like effects. Now, once you have insecurity and people are not producing as usual, that means the effect of that devaluation will not be beneficial to that sector. Then come to manufacturing. How many companies have collapsed? There are so many companies that have come down. So many companies are leaving the country. The cost of capital is too high. And then you are making credit so costly. How do you expect the SMEs, small medium enterprises, to grow? So that's why I said there is growth. There may be growth, but there is no development. The long-term effect may be fine, but that's when. How many people will survive then? So when you then talk about effect, what's the long run? Maybe in the 10, 15 years after this, how many people would have survived by then? That's why I mean by the growth is in terms of numbers, in terms of figures, in terms of maybe the foreign investment that probably, or rather the inflow in terms of foreign exchange, which is subject to prove anyway. The numbers probably in terms of foreign reserve that has increased. But at the same time that our foreign reserve is increasing, our debt is also increasing. I hope you know. We have now about 121 trillion public debt.
And we're still going for another $6.5 billion.
Exactly. We're still going for another $6.5 million. So what is the on? If you look at what we left, where it was taken from when after Buhari to now, of course, we understand that this government, well, in quotes, met a dead horse. That's what we're. But then, if you push all the effects of turning it around once to the public, it is going to be devastating.
So let's talk about the speculators even in the market right now. The bull, the bears, and the stocks, and what have you, for looking at the various stock market, the Nigerian stock exchange market right now. It said more investors are buying from blue chip companies, and one begin to wonder, economy that looks as though it's in a state of, is a comatose, that people are still saying that the value of the naira the purchasing power of the naira cannot even purchase. And more investors are saying, is this another theory or an audio conversation? If they say investors are coming and the stock exchange market keeps surging. So you are an economist and you know this field, but can we now say this as an audio investor?
No. The question is, where is that the source of that inflow? If you are, that is, like I said, one of the theoretical framework of using this floating is that, of course, for FDI will increase. And then if you are in a sector that has potentials of export, of course you gain. So when people are buying shares, what is this? How many of us, the average people, what is the percentage of people that bought shares? Where are they coming? Is either you are in the public sector, you're probably in government, or you are making your money abroad. So if you are making your money, I was in Los Angeles in August, and I entered a shop to buy a bottle of Coke, and the Coke it was $2-3. Immediately, I calculated the value in my naira, because of course I changed to naira, I had naira, and I saw that I'm going to buy almost 4,000 naira. Do you understand what I mean? The same Coke that I took like 1 or 2 days or 3 days ago in Nigeria, that I'm buying almost 5,000. No, my friend drove me into, we drove into a gas station, and I saw the price. And I saw the price is like about $4.5 in Los Angeles. When I got to Missouri, I saw another price. But when I calculated this, I now saw that actually, if it is what the central bank is, what is called purchasing power parity, because one of the fundamentals of floating exchange is that you do what we call, in the long run, achieve purchasing power parity, where prices local prices will be close to international market. If it is that what they are trying to get in the short run, then it means that they are going to kill a lot of industries. So I don't care. It's not, like I said, it is not about the numbers. Yes, people are purchasing, but what is the percentage in the economy of the people? When things like the Zenith finished, I even hear that they are overcapitalized. Yes, many companies, but who are these people? Where are they coming from? We know ourselves in the country. We know that less than 1% of the economy. That's why I said development, like we know in development economics, has to do with inequality gap. When you are saying that people are making money, or some people are, buying shares and the economy appears to be booming, what is the percentage? Is it not the same, less than 1% of people? Are there not people who are probably abroad making their money outside the country? Where I think we need to do is to get more people, remove more people from poverty line back to mainstream, or if there is anything like middle income earners. So that is what we need. Not when you are proposing a wage increase of to 70%, and already that 70% is not, cannot buy you what 30,000 could have bought about 2-3 years ago. That's what I mean. That in as much as the government, maybe those figures are there, but it is not taking us now. Anyway,
Dr. Chime, there is this conversation that is currently ongoing at the moment, and that is, first, on one hand, Nigerians are clamoring for IMF and also the World Bank to come in to salvage some of the economic situations that we have in the country. But then Nigerian Labour Congress has come out to say that based on what the African director of World Bank, of IMF, in the person of Abebe Salaise, the African director of World Bank, came out to say that they are not part of the people that asked the Nigerian government to take no subsidy. It's domestic issue.
Yes.
And that conversation has sparked a lot of wildfire across the board. But then let's look at this from the onset. Was subsidy the right way to go for us as a nation in order for us to develop, or would have looked at other things to do to ensure that we grow as a country first before even talking about subsidy? Was it the right way to go at all?
Okay, first of all, let us get to a point clear, and that is what is true. The policies that this government, especially these 3 or 4 policies they are operating, they are Bretton Woods policies. Bretton Woods, the IMF, the World Bank. These are their policies. And these are part of their stabilization policies, which they have used globally. So it's not, in fact, I think they're already here. It's not about, whether they will come, they want to come or not. They are already here. In other words, they are already operating their policy. So I'm not surprised that the World Bank will say, okay, yeah, you're doing well, and the IMF, you say, yeah, we didn't tell you to do the no. The truth is that these are their policies, and our economy managers, of course, probably have that background. So now, coming to the question, can we do wrong with subsidy? That's what you want.
Yeah.
Fine. Globally, in United States, agriculture, healthcare, they are all subsidized, heavily subsidized up to now. There's no government, there's no economy. We used to have extreme economies, socialism and capitalism, but it is no longer operating. All economies are mixed. In UK, the transport and the housing are heavily subsidized. So when you talk about subsidy, you look at what are these areas that will grow the economic, that is the what called create wealth, will help your people to have high purchasing power. That's the issue. Now, we understand the argument for removing subsidy, especially in petrol, about corruption. We also understand the argument for floating the economy, about round tripping, but these are purely corruption, which we can use other measures to reduce. So subsidy is not anything bad in itself. It is what are you subsidizing and how are you subsidizing it. If, for example, the transport is subsidized heavily, you may not even think about fuel. If, for example, there is a good infrastructure that will take me from my house to this station, I won't bother driving. I wouldn't bother driving because most people in Europe may not even need to drive. So this issue of there is still need for subsidy. Now, especially in a commodity that that runs through everybody. Now, but when you talk about corruption and people make money, that's first of all what you need to do. Handle that here. So I will not write off subsidy. Yes, the IMF, all these Bretton Woods institutions will always recommend that you will reduce public sector spending, especially waste. But check what we're having now. They also, argue that the cost of governance is still high. Where are they? In which aspect? Is it in terms of high on, probably things that are not pro-poor focused. So subsidy for petroleum, to me, they would have faced this gradually, provided infrastructure and remove it entirely. Yes, I agree that that is good for the economy. Market reforms, they are purely based on demand and supply. But then you should look at the cost of it. If you look at the countries that this thing have had, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Argentina, Ghana, name them, many of them, you have had riots, had terrible. In 2018 and 2019 in Argentina, if you remember, there were serious problems. In Sri Lanka, the same thing happened. In Bangladesh, the same thing happened. Even in Senegal. So most of these stabilization policy will lead to terrible, harsh pains. But I think we have a window, and probably we'll come to that. A window is for our government to tweak what we are doing, not to remove entirely subsidy, but gradually phase it out. That would be my.
But looking at these old conversations around them, what the even Nigerian Labour Congress President Joe Ajero has alleged that the Britain would have been able to tweak the government to take certain decision right now. Now, to a large extent, one would want to say, if you're coming in from the perspective of political economy, they will say that, okay, probably there's an iota of truth in what has been said. But let's look at that allegation again. The Tinubu government has been one government that wants to get Nigerian out of where it was and take Nigeria to its Eldorado economic-wise. Let's x-ray this government, and looking at it from Ajero's speech, can one say at this point that the government was actually tweaked by the Bretton Woods?
Like I said, once you have a debt problem, renegotiating that debt will be a problem. You go to the Bretton Woods. You don't just go to, you don't operate, Nigeria doesn't operate in a vacuum, of course. Nigeria belongs to the Committee of Nations. And then we have the signed protocols. So when you are going to IMF, you want to negotiate with the Paris Club, with all these organizations, of course, they will come in. And that's why you don't need anybody to tell you that they are there already. Okay, even if they didn't come, okay, in 1988, you remember the SAP, the Structural Adjustment Program. Okay. That one, it was open. Everybody was shouting, IMF, stability, all these things. They don't need to make the noise now. The truth is that we are operating a market reform, a market-run economy that is instigated by the Bretton Woods. Take it or leave it. That is the truth. And that it is because we need this renegotiation of our debt. Like I said, I actually understand the problem of the government, because they made like what we can call a dead horse. We had a lot of problem by the time he came in. And then if they needed to renegotiate, of course, the Bretton Woods will come in. And that's why these policies. But you have a choice. The choice is that it is not, like I said at the beginning, 5 types of exchange. If they said you need to float, why do you float? You argue against why you are not floating. You can use the crawling peg. You can use the managed economy. You can use the dual exchange rate system. After all, why did they not force the last president, to float? You understand? Why is it that they didn't float? He understands that this is what is going to be the problem. Why is it that you now automatically remove subsidy? And the reason you are removing subsidy is because of what? Corruption. Fine, I go. Why should that corruption persist? What are we having now? So, on one hand, I buy on behalf of Ajero that it is Western world run. On the other hand, too, I want to believe that our economic managers, no matter their background, have a good intention for the country. But my problem, like I will always say, even if the CBN governor is here, our economic managers will say, our problem is that they want to achieve what should be achieved in the long run, in the short run. If you know, that's what they call, you should understand that the pains, that the simultaneous policies of tight monetary policy, of floating exchange, of subsidy removal, they are too much, they are too heavy. And then people are dying, people are going down, jobs are being lost. Even the banks, very soon, maybe start pushing people out. Because the credit, if you are asked not to use up to 50% of your fund, you know the implication? You must keep the 50% of your fund. And then liquidity ratio is 30%, meaning very tight. Then you now increase the MPR up to 27.5. The implication is that now, if you now lend to people, how much will the banks, if you do the bank, how much will the banks lend to people? What will be the cost of production? So these are, and they are thinking about reducing the purchasing power with the aim of reducing inflation. But at the same time, you are killing jobs. You are creating more unemployment. You are also making people, you are reducing the poverty line. You are people from poverty line to what if there's anything like pro-poor. So many people are going to the pro-poor level because how many people eat now 3 times square? No. So that is the problem. So what I want to call, stage by stage reduction, implementation of market reforms. So which I think, if they do, if no matter the advice of the World Bretton Woods, that would be better for us.
It will be better for us as a country. But let's even talk again about this central bank and monetary policy, the MPR rules. It is in a space of 1 year, it has increased. We just saw it increase about 850 basic points. Yes. That's a lot compared to what we have. That's about 27.25% compared to what we have last year, which is about I think it was about 18.75% as at last year. One begin to ask, is the monetary policy of this administration designed to further promote Nigerians and to get to economic drive, or further drag us back? Looking at some of the CBN policies right now.
Yes. Their major aim, the major goal, and the main fundamental theoretical framework of that policy is to reduce inflation. But how are they doing it? They want to reduce inflation by reducing the disposable income. Because one, by the time you cannot lend, by the time the cost of capital is high, people may not be able to borrow. Now, by the time you do not borrow, and at the time you don't spend, now what happens? Expenditures will be low. And then they are thinking now, which is the theory, is that when the expenditure is low, then there will be, when there is a low reduced demand, because expenditure is low because of reduced demand. When there is reduced demand, which means that the prices will come. You know the theory, this elementary economics, when prices, when demand falls, prices, goes down. When demand increases, price, that's the elementary. For any layman, that's the elementary basic economics, what they're applying. So that when you reduce demand, then the prices will crash. But then, Nigeria has a peculiar economy. Because the truth is this, have we been witnessing decrease in inflation or reduction on increase? We have been increasing. Because there are other policies, it is not only economic policy, there are sort of things. Corruption is key. That's the problem. Okay, if you ask people in the parallel market, why is it that no matter the price, people still come and then you have more money? There was a day I took that pain, and you know what they answered me? That people that bring the money are not the ordinary business people. In other words, probably those in the public sector or the government. So I don't understand him, but what I say, I now ask, because the theory of economics is that once the increase is a higher rate, there is less demand. So why are you still having increase in demand of foreign exchange locally? We are supposed to have because the thing is increasing. That is the theory. But Nigeria has a peculiarity. So when you use a theory of economics, yes, but then you have to look at our peculiarities now. So I think the tight monetary tight policy, the government, yes, the CPN, MPC members, yes, they have good intention, but they need to look at our peculiarity. The truth is that they may not achieve that with other contemporary policies of increase in floating or managed floating, and then subsidy removal. All these things have moved up inflation. So how are we going to reduce inflation? Rather, instead of achieving reduction in inflation, you are going to increase unemployment. You are going to increase poverty, and you are going to widen the inequality. And that's what I said at the beginning, that Nigeria may be achieving growth, but they are not achieving economic development. And the earlier we begin to tweak our policies, looking at with a human face, with a human face, the better off for us. What we may have to achieve probably in the short or medium term, we don't need to, what we're supposed to achieve in the long term, we don't need to achieve it in the short term. So we can give a long space, graduate these things so that people will breathe. Whether in America they said, I need, you remember that. So the people need to breathe.
Dr. Chime, let's even look at, we started the conversation from Nigerian stock exchange market and we've moved far, and now we've even talked about some of the micro and macro economy so far. Well, we talk about the CBN, but let's talk about e-Naira right now. It doesn't seem to be working. I might be wrong, but then it doesn't seem like. Is there no possibility of we using digital assets, probably the new trend of currencies, to be able to reduce inflation or to support our inflation drive as it stands right now?
Yeah, I think yes, it's possible. Digital economy, but I think most people are conscious of the operations of digital economy, but I do not think whether there is enough publicity on that e-Naira. I do not know. I'm not a part of the central bank, because even at my level of exposure, what I am aware is that, of course, I prefer to use digital transactions than carrying cash. That is a different thing altogether. So that can reduce inflation because of transaction cost. Of course, that will also help in most economy like the United States and income. Of course, it's credit economy. If you carry cash to, they were looking at you as, where are you coming from? So in fact, I asked the person who hosted me in LA, and he said, look, if you want to pay for rent and you bring money, they will look at you as if cash. Are you crazy? You don't understand. So we need that. We need to understand that, look, but then, my brother, we have the same peculiarity, of course, which we know, corruption. Do we really believe ourselves? Will that policy, will that transaction, will that e-Naira, will it not be compromised? Do you understand? So that's the problem. So because is it just a matter of stunning policies? We have to look at the problems that will come out of it and proactively try to reduce the risk in it. I think that is the only way we can use that, and then we make what we want, achieve what we want to achieve in terms of achieving a better, less, reducing inflation through operation of the e-Naira.
Again, Dr. Chime, this issue of cryptocurrencies, as whether I would like it or not, it has come to stay across the world. But the conversation among it's as if it's a demographical conversation in Nigeria. And even we're trying to see if President Bola Tinubu can even talk about it, begin to build hubs that can support forex and other form of transactions that happens even with digital assets. But we're not seeing all of those conversations happen. As an economist, do you think at this point cryptocurrencies will survive in Nigeria?
Why not? But still the same issue, because those who call the Yahoo boys in quote, there already been some, the experience I've had, that most of them use cryptocurrency to convert whatever they do. So you still have the problem of what belief. Of
so but what if the government puts up policies where the government can tax the Yahoo boys and do probably a KYC, know your customer kind of policy to ensure that we be on the same page when it has to do with economic growth, then use this as a frontier to further enhance the economy? I'm just saying.
No, you are correct, but then tax is one thing. The public having confidence in it is another thing. That is the truth. So if it is safe-proof, of course, that is one way to go. That is, it will boost our economy too. But like I always say, When I try to look at what is happening there, I was confronted with the problem that most of these fraud are converted into cryptocurrency, not direct funding. So if I'm one that trying to invest or trying to be part of it, I will be conscious. They understand. So we need a lot of protective measures. KYC, fine, but even if there is the policy, the implementation is a different thing. If you're going into a bank, and they sometimes even can compromise the KYC formula, and you know that it's not as if the things are stringent. And then, so I think the problem we still have in this country is to build our confidence in these emerging financial instruments. Once we can get there, of course, how many people know about fintech? You understand? How many people know about fintech in this country? What they do and what they operate. You see, even people who are learned, and then they still want the traditional banking. So we really need that a lot of confidence to build, and then making it known to the public.
All right, Dr. Chimere, let's look at the Tinubu's economic policy so far. If you want to rate the policies so far, how would you rate it? A pass mark, super grade, or an average?
I'll answer in two ways. One as an economist, and then the other as a layman, as a Nigerian. Yes, and as an economist who understand the theoretical framework of the economic policy, I would say yes, that is a plus. That is not really a pass mark because of the conception. But even as an economist, which you don't separate from my being
In Nigeria.
in Nigeria.
I was coming to that.
So which you don't separate from my being an ordinary Nigerian, then how have I failed on these policies? Of course, even at my level, I feel the bond so much. And then every day you wake up and people, and then they keep telling you have patience, this and that. That is not the issue. So on that, it is almost zero. In other words, if you want to develop a policy that is prone to helping the people, what is the basic function of a government? Is it not about welfare? Is it not about security? Now, what do you mean by welfare? If people are going hungry and people are dying and people are losing their jobs and inequality is increasing, only the people who are in government and those abroad that can make it, then you are not making it. And that is the problem. So what policies do you bring in? So I will score them very low. So if you take the average of my two parts, then of course they are below average. So for now, what I think the government will do is look at that policy again. If I were to be part of the government, probably, in as much as yes, I have a background in economics, but I will still argue that first of all, look at the likely effect. You do a scenario planning. Look at the problems that these things will come up. Taking the experience of many countries that have failed, and taking our experience in the structural adjustment program. Like I said, during the SAP in 1988, you saw what we came up with, all kinds of policies, and at the end of the day, what did we achieve? Where did we get to? When Abacha came in, he reversed the thing to fixed floating exchange, and that was part of the problems he had with the international community. But then our economic inflation collapsed, came down. Why did we not achieve the issue? Inflation stability. Why did we not price level stability during the structural adjustment program? We kept on having volatility. Now, yes, the CBN governor said the other day that we have achieved volatility stability. That the exchange rate has stabilized. At what range? At what rate? And how does it affect the common man? How many of us I heard your commentary at 1,006 or 7? Do you know what that means? So it is not about, for me, the economic policies. There may be, yes, no economic policy doesn't have a good intention, but the issue is, how are you applying it? And at the end of the day, do you want a lot of percentage of people to die before you now begin to have the gains? No, I don't think that's the intention. I think the intention is for good, and therefore they should begin to reduce some of the, or tweak it, and begin to rephrase some of those things. Provide, yes, the CNG in terms of energy is good, but then look at it. I went to convert my car, and they charged me. They said I should bring 1 million to convert.
To buy a new car?
No, to convert from fuel to CNG.
To
My Toyota Highlander, and then I now calculated what is the average cost of fuel per month, and that will give me 1 million. Then, and I said, if I have to use 1 million naira to convert to CNG, yes, on the face value, cheap, but then by the time, I'm not talking about the problem that may come in, which you don't know, but why is it that costly? So these are things I need the government to come into. Crash the prices so that people will begin to go there. So that people will now know, look, it is easier. And with 100,000 I can convert. So that, and then look at even in terms of renewable energy. What are they doing? Can't they subsidize that area? That's what I'm saying. That subsidy, like I said before, one of the policies is removal of subsidy. But subsidy is not bad. It is in the area. Like I mentioned, UK subsidizing, even in US subsidizing energy. Even in some of these countries, they still subsidize fossil fuel. They subsidize renewable energy. If you are into solar and wind, energy production, they assist you. So why can't we go into this area so that the energy cost will come low? These are the things. So in terms of policy, fine, but on the average, I think it's below average.
Dr. Chime, a lot of people have pointed this hand, let's say hand of falsehood on economists as being part of Nigerians' problem. And you are an economist. I'm not saying you are part of the problem, but I'm just saying that when we look at the last economic summit that was held, the last one, just the recent one, I think some 2 weeks ago, one would have expected to see a communique reached by the whole Nigerian economist in order to chart a new course for Nigeria. But on the surface of it, it's as if more Nigerian economists are even pulling back in terms of preferring solution to the Nigerian economy, hereby allegedly becoming part of the Nigerian problem. But as an economist, do you see light at the end of the tunnel for Nigerian growth and development as it stands right now?
Okay, the first part of our question is acquisition on our problem. Fine and good. The truth is that everybody comes up with his argument or her argument based on his or her background, and again, the intention. If I'm in government, when I was in government, I served 2 former DGs. You can't come to criticize a policy openly, of course, but you can give insider advice. But down, when you bring the pool of people, professionals together, there's no way they will agree on the same thing. They depend on how their background. Many of us that probably were trained maybe with the Western world will always come with Western policies, while those who are trained from the East Bloc will always come with communist or all these policies. But for those of us that probably are not in government or that are independent, we look at the reality, and you tell yourself, look, this policy will not fly. As I speak with you, I know some of my clients, organizations, federal government parastatals, that were pulled out from the budget, the recurring budget. As this is October, I know a few of them in the health industry, parastatal, that have not earned salary, their staff have not earned salary for 10 months. And that's a sector that you are having brain drain. Then you quickly pull them out because you want them to be independent without looking at the risks involved. I know another in the digital and the communication industry that there have not been any salary, as at when because of this kind of problem. That is the policy of privatization or the policy of full commercialization. That's okay, and that's part of the Bretton Woods stabilization policies that we're seeing. Those policies, in as much as they are good, especially in line with also the, you know, then you need to look at the environment, look at, prepare them. And that's why I said it is not the policy, it is not the intention, but how you operate it. So the way forward, or the where we are going, we said whether there is light
At the end
of the tunnel. Of course, yes. I will not say there's no light. There's light at the end of the tunnel. But how soon that light will appear will depend on how these policies are managed. That is the truth. Of course, there's light in the end of the light. Every policy has a positive angle. But then, like I said, can we sustain these simultaneous programs at the same time, and for how long? That's the issue. I'm not a prophet, but I don't want to believe that what happened, of course we had, is it the end? No, what is that?
End bad governance.
End bad governance. It was, if you check what happened in Argentina, what happened in Sri Lanka, what happened in is it Bangladesh, and all those riots that happened, they are just because of what? This kind of policies. And we hope it will not get there. So there will be light, there will be lighting at the end of the tunnel, but the way to go is to take these policies gradually. If I want to be in government, I will advise a mix of a chronic peg policy. Forget about whatever any Western world will allow this policy, then check the round-tripping corruption. Allow peg it and then adjust inflation. Then a subsidy. Remove subsidy gradually, especially in key areas that affect everybody. Or subsidize areas in the rail sector where we have to grow, like in agriculture and manufacturing, even in healthcare, production of drugs. How many go to the pharmacy and ask for a price of any antibiotics? You know what that means? It's out of the reach of the common man, And then, like each time I go to the hospital and I see almost every other week they increase the fee to see consultation fee, everything, and I begin to call. They say, "Okay, that's the country." So, you look at the thing. To what extent will Nigerians go far? If we're talking about the light at the end of the tunnel, yes, but like I said, how soon will that light appear?
Well, Dr. Chime, it's so interesting talking to you this morning. And right now, you're sounding like the next governor of your state, but it's fine. Well, this is how far we can go today. I want to say thank you so much for being a part of Signature Morning today. And hope when next we need you, you'll be available for us.
Thank you so much for having me once again. It's a pleasure to be part of you. Thank you.
Well, this is the size of this morning on Signature Television. Go nowhere, as we have more shows lined up for you today, because after now we're bringing in Sports by Franklin Imbona to talk about sport with you. I am Godwin Sunday, and from all of us here in the studio, it's bye for now.